Do you know, Dick Smith, were you there that long? Circulation?
Welcome, citizens of Stockton. This is a candidate forum for the November election for the position of City Council member for District 6. The League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County is sponsoring this forum, and we thank the City of Stockton for allowing us to hold and videotape this event in the City Council chambers. My name is Mary Bava, and I will be the moderator for the forum this evening. The forum will be 30 minutes. Candidates will have 1 minute each for their opening statement, 2 minutes each for closing comments, and 1.5 minutes to respond to each question from each panelist. A timekeeper will keep track of the time, raising placards when there is 1 minute left, 30 seconds left, 15 seconds left, and a stop when time is up. Panelists will pose the same question to each candidate. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer first in rotation. For example, candidate A will answer question 1 first, candidate B will answer question 2 first, and so on. Candidates have already drawn numbers to determine their order for the opening and closing statements. Audience members, please hold all applause until the forum is completed. There are many here who support one or the other of the candidates. If there's applause each time someone speaks, we're going to have less time to hear from the candidates and hear the answers to their questions. After the closing statements, we will definitely have time to show our appreciation to the candidates for their participation and give them their due applause. We also ask that you please be sure that your cell phones are turned off. As we get started, I would like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Peggy Terry, who is representing the League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County. Eric Grunder, opinion page editor from The Record, and Gary Long, president of the Greater Stockton Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you to be sure to register to vote by October 22nd. If you have a California driver's license, you can register online at the Secretary of State's website, which is www.sos.ca.gov. We are now ready to begin with opening statements. The candidate to make his opening statement first will be Michael Tubbs.
Well, thank you so much, Mary, League of Women Voters, and concerned Stockton citizens. I think the outpouring of support shown here, not just for a candidate, but for a city, is really inspiring as someone running for public office. My name is Michael Tubbs. I'm running for City Council in District 6, Southside Stockton, a district that's been neglected, not just for the 4 years of my opponent's term, but for many, many years. My opponent will get up here and mention that experience matters, and the people of District 6 agree. They voted for me because they believed that I had the leadership and experience to reinvent Stockton. Experience matters, and that's why I worked in the White House. I worked at Google. I studied at Stanford. Experience matters. I was born in poverty. I went to SUSD schools, and I'm so excited and honored to have the opportunity to come back home and really get the process started of reinventing Stockton. So thank you again so much. I look forward to a great debate, and I'm excited about the choice that Stockton has, a choice to move forward and reinvent itself, or a choice to remain in dysfunctional status quo. That's not working for anybody, from Southside to Brookside. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fritchen.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, people of Stockton. It's good to be here before you and to speak a little bit about my ideas and where I come from. I've lived in Stockton all of my adult life, and I've raised a family here. I've worked here. I've worked for 30 years for the Human Services Agency. My current job is as a supervisor region of child abuse investigators. We investigate child abuse, make sure the children in our county are protected from being abused or being neglected. I went to school here in Stockton. I got my AA degree from Delta, I got a bachelor's degree, and I got a master's degree. I've served on many boards and commissions. I've served on the Mary Graham Foundation, the Children's Museum Board, and I've also served for 8 years on the Manteca Unified School Board, 3 years as its president, and 4 years now on the Stockton City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question will be posed by Peggy Gutierrez to Michael Tubbs.
Well, we've had some low points in our city, and we have so many #1 issues. What is your specific plan to build back all the city's valuable services to the community, and how would you finance this return to health?
Well, absolutely. I think it first starts with collaboration. Stockton has over 300 churches and a whole lot of nonprofits. And on the campaign trail, they've all been emailing me, texting me, Michael, can you bring us together? Can you help us collaborate? I was recently at the 3x3 committee meeting between the city, school district, and county. And we talked about ways to collaborate. So given the financial situation the whole nation is in, not just Stockton, resources aren't coming. So we have to be smart and leverage existing resources we have. I work at the University of Pacific, and I've already been doing things to leverage that resource. I'm starting a mentoring program at Franklin High School, one of the most troubled schools in Stockton, to bring a culture of college there. I've started a leadership program to take the 50 youth most at risk to commit crimes and equipping them to be leaders that this city needs. So we absolutely need a leader who's not just going to talk the talk, but walk the walk. And if you look at my record, I've started nonprofits. I've been on boards and commissions myself, and I've always left a legacy of impact and action. That's something that we need, given the financial situation. Money's not coming from the sky, but leadership. We need leadership. We need someone who's going to sit at the table and bring everyone together, and that's exactly why I'm running, and that's what I have to offer to the people of District 6, but also to the people of the entire city of Stockton.
Thank you. Mr. Fritchen.
Well, the number one priority of any government is to protect its citizens, and that is my number one priority. It's to make sure that they're not victims of crime. I spent my whole life working protecting victims, making sure that they're no longer abused or neglected. And I think that's where before we spend money on other resources, other things, we need to make sure that we have enough police officers on the streets working. The city has resources that are available. We just need to think about them, do some think outside of the box, find those resources. We spent last year over $9.2 million on overtime in the city of Stockton. I looked at the list today. We have 377 employees of the city of Stockton who make over $100,000 a year. When the average wage of people that live in city of Stockton is less than $40,000 a year, I think that they're getting much more pay than what is equal to what the citizens of Stockton get paid. So we need to take a look at our resources. We need to cut where we can cut. Of that list, I noticed there was also 2 individuals this last year who got paid over $400,000. That's just way too much for Stockton to pay when our city's struggling and we need police officers. So my number one priority would be to get police officers on the street and find the resources within the already established city system to pay for it, because there is money there available if we just spend more efficiently. Thank you.
Our second question will come from Gary Long to Dale Fritchen.
Thank you. It's well known that in the elections today, there's a lot of special interest money. There's a lot of large corporation money out there. And they're both very, very active in your campaigns. How will you handle negotiations in the future? And do you see yourself moving to a common goal to benefit the people of Stockton? And can you do this with without an ethical conflict of interest?
Thank you. Yes, and this has always been a dilemma. It's a dilemma in my mind that how people put money into campaigns and try to buy influence. And I think it's unfortunate that that does occur. I have received support from a multitude of people in Stockton. Financial support, volunteer support, moral support, all different types of support. I have proven over the 8 years that I was on the school board and received financial assistance, and the 4 years I've been on the city council, that I will vote what I feel in my heart is the right thing to do, and not based upon whether I received any type of donation from individuals in the past. I have voted against individuals who have given me money, and I have voted for individuals who have not provided me with any resources. So I think it's important that we, as elected officials, try to do the best that we can to represent not those special interests that give money, but to represent the people of Stockton as a whole. That's who we're working for. We're working for the citizens of Stockton to try to make sure that their lives are safer, that their lives are more comfortable, and that they're able to accomplish all those things that this country has given us the opportunity to achieve. Thank you.
Michael Tubbs.
Well, I absolutely agree with Councilmember Fritchen that we are working for the people of Stockton. I'm not sure what special interest you're talking about in regards to my campaign, unless you can count the people of the city of Stockton. We have over 300 donors, rich people, poor people, young people, old people, and none of them are special interests. They're just concerned citizens. And I found my opponent's answer kind of startling because I feel in many ways his very candidacy is based on the vote against bankruptcy, a vote that he well knows that the city had no options when that vote was made. So I'm not sure how on the dais he can say that he's not going to appeal to special interest group or people who fund his campaigns or run his campaigns when that's the only reason why he's running today.
Next question from Mr. Gruder.
District
I'm
6,
sorry.
District 6 is the poorest and often the most ignored area of Stockton. What will you do as a council member, or what do you do as a council member when constituents call and complain to you about police not answering their calls?
Mr. Tubbs, you're first.
Well, absolutely. I think that neglect, like I said, goes back many generations, but I think it's really been exemplified in the past 4 years while Councilmember Fritchen has been representing that district. In terms of what I would do, I think it's more about what I've already done. In response to a shooting at Western Ranch in my opponent's neighborhood, I got my volunteers, we put pause on the campaign, and we brought the city together because the 23-year-old had just been shot. We brought the mayor out there. We brought city council out there. We brought the police officers out there. We brought the community out there, and we brought nonprofits out there, but it wasn't just a horse and pony show. It was action was done. Neighborhood watches were set up. The neighborhood organizing committee in Western Ranch was set up. So District 6 already knows, and that's why in the campaign, I can't campaign full throttle because I'm taking call from my opponent's constituents who want me to go in their neighborhoods and speak to their churches and talk to their schools and organize their neighborhood watches. So that's something I've been doing during the campaign. I think that's why District 6 voted overwhelmingly against the incumbent and for me in the primary, because they understand that neglect leads to bad governance. They need a leader who, number one, is from the district, went to the schools, knows the problems firsthand, but also has the skills, leadership, and network to bring about a change. And that's something my opponent hasn't delivered on in the past 4 years. That's something I've already done in the 3 months of this summer in the campaign.
Mr. Fritchen.
Okay. Well, one thing my opponent might be misinformed about is that District 6 is not the worst as crime when it comes to Stockton districts. District 5 is actually worse. In the last 4 years, we've actually made huge improvements in District 6. Our crime rate has dropped. But any crime, even one crime, is too many crimes. There's a lot more that we can do, and there's a lot more that we should do to make it better in District 6. I've done all that I can in order to try to bring work into District 6. If you'll notice, we have freeway bypasses going in. We have roads being put in. We have upgrading of Charter Way and Martin Luther King Boulevard, and upgrading of the Airport Way also. All of these things help make District 6 look better and also put people to work within the district. And I think that's what we really need to do. When you're out of work, then you have to seek other ways to try to find income. And those sometimes people that seek income outside of the work field, they do that through crime. So the more people we can get back to work, I think it'll affect our crime rate within the city and within the district.
Mr. Tubbs.
New question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Ms. Gutierrez, you will have the next question. And that will be for Mr. Fritchen.
Okay. My question relates to the concept of civil discourse, how we all have different blaming things we can do. We have different hopes and wishes of things we can do. But my question is, how do you feel in regards to maintaining a stance of being civil and promoting civility within our communities so we can solve these problems together?
Mr. Fritchen, you're first.
Well, our nation is a nation of laws. But we keep laws in order to make our nation more civil and make us all have a much happier life by following those rules and laws. So I think it's important that all individuals within Stockton, within our city, follow the laws that we have established. I can't condone in any way people that are not being civil when they deal with their fellow citizens. We need to treat each other with respect and treat each other with kindness. There's no reason that we need to get angry with people and get physical with people. One thing I wanted to bring up that my opponent brought up about the vote for bankruptcy, and I'll just say right now that I voted against bankruptcy because in my heart I knew that bankruptcy would not be good for the citizens of Stockton. I did not do that for special interest. I did not do that for anybody's interest. I did it because I do not think that bankruptcy is going to make Stockton a better place. I truly believe that. I will believe that forever because I studied and I researched about bankruptcy. I did not do that, did not make that vote lightly, and I knew making that vote that I would receive some pushback, which I did, but I would still do the same thing again if I had to. Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, in the 2 minutes we're able to answer any question, or is it the question you guys were asking?
Just the questions that we're asking. Thank you.
No problem.
And you can answer Ms. Gutierrez's question now, Mr. Tubbs.
Civility?
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, I have to credit Councilmember Fritchen because I think the campaign thus far has been incredibly civil, and I think that's incredibly important for the citizens of the city of Stockton because it's not about personal attacks, it's about the problems our community face and how in the world do we move forward. We don't have time to mudsling each other and make personal attacks when people are sleeping on the floor because they hear gunshots every night, when our children can't read, when our young people see no hope. It's not the time for us to point fingers and say he's a bad person, but it is a time to look critically at people's record and say, you were in office for 4 years, what did you do? So I will continue to speak about my opponent's record and the parts of it I find problematic, but I will not resort to personal attacks. I think citywide, it's something I model and something I will continue to advocate for, but I think also civility implies conversation. You can't be civil when you're absent on issues. You can't be civil when you're not talking about the things that matter to your constituents. So I take the point on civility, but I also think we do need more conversation, especially conversation from those that we elect and hope that they would be the conversation starters.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Gary Long, and the first answer will be Michael Tubbs.
Thank you. The financial challenges and crime are our top 2 problems we have, or challenges we have here in Stockton. What do you feel is the best way to improve the long-term financial position of the city? And give me 2 ways to reduce crime now.
Can you repeat the question to make sure I answer all the parts, please?
What do you feel is the best way to improve the long-term financial position of the city? And give me 2 ways to reduce crime now.
Absolutely. Well, I think the answer is in your question. How do we attract businesses to Stockton? How do we make Stockton a desirable place for businesses? You can't do that with a record number of homicides. You can't do that when people are scared if they wear a gold chain to work, it's going to be snatched off their neck. So we have to get a handle on this public safety issue. It's going to take a lot of out-the-box thinking. A lot of the problems we have with crime in Stockton, I argue, is actually a problem with poverty. When 47% of African American families and 42% of Latino families live on incomes of $35,000 or less a year, and our children are put in schools and we're not giving them the support from the community, what do we expect? So 2 concrete things I would do. Number 1 is to work with nonprofits, bring all the nonprofits together to collaborate in doing things in terms of early childhood education. The second thing I would do, which my opponent hasn't done, would be working with SUSD Manteca Unified, would be going to the 3x3 meetings, because there was just a report from the Brookings Institute that said of the top 100 metro regions, Stockton was 94th in job preparedness, meaning that there's jobs out there, but those jobs require a college degree. Those jobs require specialized training. So if you're, as a city council person, aren't able to roll up your sleeves, get dirty, and work with the school district and create a culture of college going, we're going to keep having these cyclical conversations about crime and bringing jobs to Stockton.
Dale Fritchen.
Okay, financial part of the question first, I think, is that we need to get our fiscal house in order. We need to continue to cut where the waste is, and we still have waste within the city. As I said, we have $9.2 million last year in overtime. We spent millions and millions, almost $10 million on attorney fees and consultants. All of these things need to be cut so that we can put that money towards putting police officers on the street. And I've always been working strongly against waste in the city government. On the second one, I think it's one of the most powerful things that we can do as a community to curb crime is to get involved as Neighborhood Watch, as making sure that we don't leave our homes and cars in such a way that it makes us likely to become a victim of crime. Matter of fact, I am in the process of sending out a brochure, a crime brochure, crime handbook to 20,000 people in Stockton. I thought with my campaign funds it would be much better instead of to send out a brochure that just talks about how a self-serving brochure, but rather send something out to the people of Stockton that can actually help them lessen the chance of them becoming a victim of crime. If we can stop 1 or 2 or 3 people from becoming a victim of crime, it's all worth it. And you will be able to download that also from my website. In my concluding remarks, I will tell you how to get that.
Our next question will come from Eric Grunder, and the first responder is Dale Fritchen.
Last week, the City Council approved Project Ceasefire, the anti-crime program that supporters claim reduced gun violence considerably here in the 1990s. I assume you supported it, you voted for it, and I'd like to know if you support it, Mr. Tubbs. Why should Stocktonians believe it's going to work, though?
Well, ceasefire has worked actually not only just in Stockton, it's worked in other cities. And if you look at the program and you study and research the program, you'll see that it will have a positive effect if we can get all the parts together. It takes multiple facets in order for it to work. We have to have jail space, we have to have a court system that's going to work efficiently, and we have to have the police out there working with these people to get these guns off the street. We've shown in the 90s, when we brought ceasefire in here, that it reduced our crime significantly, our gun violence significantly in the city of Stockton. I am very excited that we're bringing this back. I've been a proponent of this for many years. We had something that worked, and for some reason we forgot, and before I was even on the council, they forgot to make it a priority and an emphasis. So I'm looking forward to it being brought back. I think it's going to have an effect on crime in our community. It will lessen the crime, especially crime that has to do with guns and gun violence. Because that's ceasefire. That's what it's aimed at, is trying to get guns off the street and try to get gun violence to be reduced in the street. By calling people in and telling them, we're no longer going to tolerate what you're doing. You're on our radar. We're going to go after you. If you don't stop doing what you're doing, then as the police chief said, we're going to drop a house on you. So I think it's going to have a very good effect in the city of Stockton.
Well, I'm absolutely in support of ceasefire. I actually was involved in the ceasefire conversation before it even got brought up to the council. I was meeting with PACT. I was meeting with churches, doing night walks with them, which is part of the ceasefire model. I even met with the police chief to talk about how we're going to find the funds to implement ceasefire. So there's no question of my support for the project. I find my opponent's remarks a little confusing in that he voted against the Marshall Plan from which ceasefire came from. So if there was time, I would love to have him answer the question, how do you vote against the Marshall Plan and to vote in favor of the recommendations of that committee? It doesn't make sense. But ceasefire is definitely a start in the right direction, but it's going to take more than just law enforcement. We cannot incarcerate our way out of this problem. It's going to take, like I said earlier, working with schools, neighborhoods, nonprofits, and churches. My opponent said we have to get all the parts together, and I wholeheartedly agree with that, but that doesn't just happen. It takes leadership. It takes someone who's going to go to the 3x3 community meeting like I did last week. And actually in that meeting we talked about ceasefire, and I said, since we did it before, and now we have crime again, what lessons did we learn from last time that we will implement today? And it seemed like a question that wasn't really considered. So I've been active in the fight for ceasefire. I've been in night walks, and I'm going to continue to work with churches, nonprofits, sheriff, county, and city officials to make sure it's implemented, because I know personally the people I've talked to in District 6, but also in Brookside, also in University Park neighborhoods, crime is an issue. People are afraid. People are hearing gunshots every night, not in the Middle East, but in Stockton, California, which was once an all-American city.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Pegatiri to Michael Tubbs.
Michael, downtown Stockton has many empty buildings and storefronts which contribute to a picture of a dying community. Other cities have turned empty buildings into work-live lofts for artists or small home businesses. Do you see this as a potential solution for downtown? If not, why not? If so, how would you encourage that development?
I'm absolutely a proponent of smart growth. I think we've expanded as far as we can, and we got to really get serious about how do we develop our inner core, because the downtown is the core of a city. If you have a downtown that's crime-ridden, a downtown that no one wants to go to, that's a horrible reflection of your city, especially when we have a hotel and arena hoping to get money in from tourists. So I'm definitely a proponent of smart growth, and definitely in terms of empowering people to take back the downtown neighborhood. How do we do that? I think we do that, number one, by making the permit process a little easier. From small businesses, I hear all the time, why is it so hard to do anything in this city, much less downtown? Why is it so expensive? What's up with all the red tape? What's all this paperwork? Can we just make downtown better? So I'm more than willing to say publicly that as a city council member, in the next 4 years, I'll be sure to, when any development comes up, we think about downtown. We think about how do we empower businesses downtown. We think about how do we create a growing culture. And it's already been starting. The Dear Stockton project, which I was lucky to be photographed with this past week, and is a great example of people taking back downtown and doing murals. So I think it's just going to take, with everything else, leadership that's active on the issue, that doesn't appear 4 years when it's election time, but that's really engaged for every day of the 4-year term to really turn downtown and the city around.
Thank you. Dale Fritchen.
I've actually worked in downtown Stockton for 30 years, and I've seen it ebb and flow, and I've seen it go up and seen it go down. And I actually, really, in the last few months or a year or so, I've seen a rebirth in downtown Stockton. There are schools that are opening up downtown. You see children walking to and fro as they go between the schools and their exercise locations. You see more and more businesses opening up. There's still way too many that are closed, and there's way too many that are boarded up and being neglected. I have to agree that we need to take care of the permit problems that the city's had. We've done an awful lot. We've reduced the fees for permits, and we've made it much simpler to get permits in our city. But I think for businesses coming into Stockton, we need to throw out the red carpet. And way too often we're throwing out the red tape instead. So I think we have talked about it as a council, and we've made some progress in it. And I think there's still more progress to be made, but it will happen because the city council is determined to simplify that permit center and permit process, and also reduce the amount of fees that are necessary in order for a business to come into our city. When a business comes into the city, they actually bring revenue into the city in the form of sales taxes and people working. So we need to try to not burden them with permit fees and keep them from coming here. Thank you.
It is now time for our closing statements. The first speaker will be Dale Fritchen.
Okay, I just wanted to thank again everyone for coming out tonight to listen to this, and those at home watching it on TV. I am very proud to be a citizen of Stockton, of this city. My opponent brought up about the Marshall Plan and how I voted against the Marshall Plan. And in actuality, I wasn't voting against the Marshall Plan, and if he had studied and learned about what had happened, I was voting against spending $150,000 to a consultant from Utah to come here and tell us how to solve our crime problem. And obviously, we didn't need to spend the $150,000 because we solved the crime problem with something we already had in our community, and that's the ceasefire. So our community is strong. There's good people here. I've seen over the course of my living here that there's a large number of people that want to do what's right, and they want to make this community a better community. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that I have a brochure that's going to be going out to help you learn about what you can do in order to lessen the likelihood of you becoming a victim of crime. If you would like to download a copy, you can go to my website at votefordale.com. So it's vote, V-O-T-E, the number 4, and Dale, D-A-L-E.com. And you'll be able to download that brochure. And it gives you dozens and dozens of hints on how you can make it yourself a little bit safer, make it more difficult on the criminals, make it so that you're less likely to be a victim of crime in our community. This is one of the facets that we need to do in order to make Stockton a safer place as we begin to rebuild our community back to the number of officers that we've had in the past. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael Tubbs.
Well, thank you again so much for having this forum, and thank you so much, Councilmember Fritchen. I'm hoping we do this a couple more times before November 6th. Throughout this campaign, sometimes I've been confused, in a sense, about who I'm running against. Am I running against the man who first mentioned bankruptcy as a solution 2 years ago as chair of the Budget Committee? Or am I running against the man who's a staunch advocate against bankruptcy? Am I running against the man who wants to make streets clean and neighborhoods safe? Or am I running against the man who just recently voted against free federal money to revitalize and clean up our neighborhoods. But make no confusion, I'm very clear about who I am and what I'm running from. Like I said, I'm from Southside Stockton, born and raised, and I'm so excited about coming back home and bringing attention and leadership that not only Southside, but the city of Stockton needs. I think the choices in this race are very clear and indicative in the statement when my opponent said that we had already solved their crime problem somehow by a simple vote on ceasefire. I don't think that's true when we still have gold chains being snatched off people's necks, when we still have people scared in their houses. I think it's a step in the right direction, but being self-congratulatory before any work has been done, I think is indicative of the leadership we've had from my opponent over the past 4 years. But I'm so hopeful about the opportunity to reinvent Stockton because on the trail, I've interacted and met with people from the age of 6 to 76 who are excited about the process of being engaged in community, who are excited about turning around schools and neighborhoods, and who just need leadership that's not afraid to ask the tough questions, that's not going to be consistent with values and goals, and it's not going to wait till election time to put out a brochure against crime. Crime didn't just happen in October. Crime's been happening for the past 22 years of my life at least. Where was the brochure 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? So I really ask for your vote on November 6th because we really do have all the assets we need to reinvent Stockton. We just need leadership that cares, leadership that's knowledgeable, leadership that researches, leadership that's not afraid to get its hands dirty and work with the community and not expect the community to do everything itself, because if that was the case, there'd be no need for a city council. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County, I would like to thank Eric Grunder, Peggy Gattiri, and Gary Long for being panelists tonight, and I would like to thank Dale Fritchen and Michael Tubbs for joining us and devoting their time to this very important evening. I'd like to let the members of the audience know that we have easy voter guides in the lobby that are free, that are presented by the League of Women Voters to help us deal with the 11 propositions on the ballot. And now I would like to take this moment for all of us to show our appreciation for our speakers.